She was unexpectedly thrust into an unimaginable situation, and her life came to an abrupt halt, as though a car had suddenly slammed on the brakes. Lily had been married to Daniel for over a year, and she had always wanted to be accepted, especially by her mother-in-law. However, this dream was not easily achieved. Mrs. Wilson, Lily's mother-in-law, was not someone who would easily welcome anyone. Despite Lily's best efforts cooking, maintaining the home, and engaging in conversations that she hoped would please her, she was met only with Mrs. Wilson's indifference and Daniel's helpless silence. While Lily was on her own at home one afternoon, Mrs. Wilson arrived. She did not extend a salutation or indicate that she was interested in engaging in a civil conversation. She entered the room with a cold expression, her gaze fixated on Lily as if she had something unpleasant to say. "Lily," she began, her voice trembling, "I am eager to converse with you." Lily was at a loss as to what was transpiring, and she turned around in astonishment. Mrs. Wilson did not provide any additional information. She arose and proceeded to the exterior. Lily, her heart pounding, followed her quietly, unaware of the events that were about to transpire. Mrs. Wilson had already entered her vehicle by the time Lily arrived at the door. Mrs. Wilson directed her to enter the vehicle without providing an explanation. Lily reluctantly entered the vehicle, unable to voice her objections, despite the fact that she had a sense of unease. Lily was unaware of their destination as they departed in their vehicle. She was afraid to pose any questions during the entire journey, which was conducted in silence. Lily did not begin to perceive that something was amiss until Mrs. Wilson transported her to her parents' residence. Lily was not observed by Mrs. Wilson as she exited the vehicle. "Enter," she ordered. Upon entering the residence, Lily's father immediately appeared. He gazed at Lily, then at Mrs. Wilson, his expression betraying great confusion. "What did your mother-in-law say?" her father inquired, his voice profound, as if a weighty burden were pressing on his heart. Mrs. Wilson gazed at Lily with a frigid demeanor, as if she had no further words to express. "She is not deserving of the title of wife. I am returning her. It is imperative that your parents assume responsibility." Lily remained motionless. Is she to be returned? Was she a person or merely a meaningless object that needed to be returned? She was stupefied by the information she was receiving. In silence, her father gazed at Mrs. Wilson, his visage pale. His irises were a testament to his intelligence. He struggled to suppress his anger, unwilling to escalate the situation in the presence of Lily, despite the fact that his wrath was already boiling over. Her father's voice rose as he declared, "We will not tolerate this. I will close the company if you believe that I am required to assume responsibility." Lily's mother emerged from the interior and gazed at both of them with grave concern. "Indeed, we will be compelled to cease all activities if we are to accept responsibility. We are unable to tolerate the treatment our daughter is receiving." Mrs. Wilson was taken aback, but she refrained from expressing her surprise. Lily was unable to flee the wrath that enveloped her, as if she were ensnared in the eye of a storm. While Lily was still in a state of shock from the events that had transpired, her father-in-law, who had refrained from speaking until this moment, eventually spoke. "We simply desire her to vacate our residence. Return home so that we are relieved of our obligation to interact with her." Lily was unable to fathom how she could be treated in this manner, as his words struck her like a hefty slap. A woman who had been married for less than a year was discarded without explanation, treated as if she were a useless object. Lily was afraid that her life would descend into despair after her mother-in-law sent her back to her parents' home on that agonizing day. She contemplated whether she would ever be able to ascend again. She had not only lost her spouse, Daniel, but also a substantial portion of her self-esteem. The sensation of being humiliated and disrespected was intolerable. Every evening, she contemplated whether she was the sole individual to endure this humiliating treatment, or if anyone else had ever encountered a similar situation. Sitting in the chamber, she experienced a sense of exhaustion and depletion. The callous words of Mrs. Wilson reverberated in her mind, "She is not deserving of being a wife, return her." Lily was perplexed as to why her mother-in-law would say such things. Daniel, her spouse, stood there in silence, his expression devoid of emotion. He gazed at his mother and then at Lily, but he did not speak. His silence was a deafening vacuum that exacerbated Lily's sense of isolation. Upon gazing into her father's eyes, she observed a buildup of wrath within him, despite the fact that he had consistently refrained from engaging in conflict. But he, too, remained motionless, uncertain about how to respond. She was unable to endure the sense of helplessness emanating from both of them. Mrs. Wilson exited the residence without a single glimpse in Lily's direction following the brief conversation. Lily's footfall were cold and unyielding, as if they were a declaration that she no longer belonged to her family. The weighty thud of the door's closure sealed Lily's fate. The tension was palpable in the air, as her family maintained silence. Lily was aware that they were concerned about her well-being, however, their concern did not alleviate the overwhelming sensation of being abandoned. Lily's realization about the time she had spent in Mrs. Wilson's family was that no matter how much effort she put in, it was never enough. Mrs. Wilson perceived the meals she had prepared and the sacrifices she had made as inconsequential. Lily was unable to fall asleep in the dimly illuminated room as everyone else retired for the evening. She was unable to stop contemplating whether she would ever be able to revert to her previous existence or if she was destined to begin anew. Suddenly, she recalled her father's earlier statement, "We will shut down the company if she wants us to take responsibility." These words were not only a testament to his unwavering support and affection for her, but also to his determination to remain steadfast. His presence was a source of solace that Lily had never anticipated, despite the fact that he was unable to do much. She was unable to allow herself to be defeated, as a powerful surge of resolve began to rise within her as she sat there, lost in contemplation. Mrs. Wilson would not permit herself to persist in their shadow if her family were capable of treating her in this manner. She was compelled to rise and reclaim her sense of self. Lily determined the following morning that it was time to emerge from her sorrowful state. The initial measure was to consult with her parents. She was hesitant to be a burden to them, but she also could not allow them to be held accountable for Mrs. Wilson's actions. She was aware that she had to take action in order to establish herself on her own. She was unable to persist in her existence as a puppet, allowing others to dictate her actions. Therefore, Lily initiated a new journey, even if it necessitated taking baby steps. She resolved to secure employment that would enable her to regain her autonomy. She did not require Mrs. Wilson's approbation, rather, she sought to establish her own worth. Lily secured employment with a modest organization in the days that ensued. She was glad of herself for taking action, despite the modest salary. She felt as though she was gradually reclaiming her life with each step forward, despite the sluggish pace of progress. Lily also began to concentrate more on herself during this period. She rediscovered her passions, such as reading and attending cooking courses, and eventually learned to take care of herself. She was no longer permitted to indulge in self-pity. Rather, she utilized her prior failures and sorrows as motivation to evolve into a more refined version of herself. Nevertheless, the narrative did not conclude at that point. Just as Lily believed she had successfully regained control of her life, Mrs. Wilson reappeared. Lily was prepared to confront any challenge that may arise this time. Her narrative was about to undergo a succession of unexpected twists and turns. Lily was once again compelled to confront the shocking realities of Mrs. Wilson's family after regaining her balance, finding herself again, and rebuilding her life. These truths were unanticipated by anyone. The subsequent days transpired in a relatively tranquil manner. Lily began to experience a sense of progressive equilibrium. Despite the hard labor, she was still proud of her ability to sustain herself without relying on anyone. Nevertheless, she abruptly recognized that something was amiss during those late hours, when the sole sound emanating from the room was the typing of her keyboard. Her father was a man of principle who consistently showed concern for her, however, he was not one to readily articulate his emotions. At times, he would gaze at her with a contemplative expression, as if he was hesitant to express himself. Lily was apprehensive about causing him additional concern, however, she was also experiencing a profound sense of unease that was difficult to dispel. One afternoon, while she was in the kitchen preparing food, her father summoned her to the living room. She was aware that a significant statement was imminent. She felt an indistinct sense of apprehension. His voice was low and contemplative as he inquired, "Emma, do you remember your brother?" Lily nodded, but she was unable to comprehend his underlying message. "Certainly, I maintain communication with him." "He is employed at construction sites, correct?" he inquired. Lily began to experience a sense of unease at this juncture. "Indeed, he serves as a subcontractor for certain construction projects." After gazing at her with great intensity, her father exhaled. "Your brother informed me that some of his recent projects have been experiencing difficulties. The damages are not his responsibility, however, someone is intentionally causing them. These errors are resulting in expenses for him to rectify, and in reality, they may be motivated by financial gain." A chilly shudder swept through Lily. She experienced a surge of apprehension. Her mother-in-law and father-in-law had previously maintained cordial relationships with numerous significant contractors, however, she now came to the realization that they may have ulterior motives in addition to their desire to discredit her. Lily inquired, her voice quivering, "Dad, what do you mean?" Her father did not respond immediately. He remained silent for a brief period before proceeding, "You know, there are a few peculiar details in your brother's projects. The damages appear to be intentional, and I am beginning to suspect that Mrs. Wilson and her husband may be responsible." Lily was taken aback by the news. Her mother-in-law and father-in-law, whom she believed had abandoned her entirely, now appeared to be involved. It is possible that their reticence and coldness served a purpose. They had exploited her and her family. Lily resolved to confront Daniel the following day. She was unable to persist in her current state of uncertainty. She required knowledge of the truth. He appeared perplexed when she inquired about the complications associated with his brother's construction projects, however, he refrained from denying any allegations. Daniel acknowledged, "I am aware that the organization has encountered challenges, however, I am unable to comprehend the reasons for this. I was under the impression that she was not embroiled in this matter, despite the fact that I had heard a few rumors." Lily experienced a state of freeze. Mrs. Wilson was not merely a challenging mother-in-law, she may have put her entire family in a precarious situation for her own gain. Lily at that moment resolved that she could no longer remain mute. She was compelled to take action in order to reveal the truth. She was obligated to safeguard not only her family but also herself. Lily transformed into a discreet investigator in the days that followed, accumulating evidence and assembling the truth in secret. She initiated the process of asking the appropriate inquiries, gradually gathering information until the complete picture began to emerge. The information she discovered was shocking. Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Wilson had been intentionally causing issues to sabotage her family's construction projects in order to demand reparations and profit from the damage. The errors that had impeded the initiatives were not incidental, rather, they were part of a deliberate strategy. Lily was aware that the subsequent action was inevitable. Armed with an abundance of evidence to expose them, she prepared for the confrontation. However, she also recognized the significance of the impending events. This was not merely a conflict between her and Mrs. Wilson, it was a confrontation between trust and betrayal, between the quiet, unseen damage caused by deception and the truth that would eventually bring it all into the open. Lily would never forget the day of the trial. She was overcome with a feeling of unease as she entered the courtroom. Anticipation was palpable in the atmosphere. Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Wilson were situated in front of her. Lily observed the fear that was concealed behind their stern expressions as they sat motionless, their eyes frigid. They were aware that it had concluded. The contest had been initiated. Lily sat beside her legal team at the rear of the room. On the outside, she appeared tranquil, however, her pulse was pounding within. The truth, the complete and incontrovertible truth, was contained on every page of the file in her possession, not merely evidence. She had no desire to allow them to flee the consequences of their actions. Lily maintained a steady focus as Mrs. Wilson was summoned to the stand. Mrs. Wilson had consistently mastered the art of manipulation, consistently manipulating the truth to her advantage. However, this time, Lily forbade her. Attempting to defend herself, Mrs. Wilson stammered, her voice slightly shaking as she attempted to persuade the court that her actions were out of necessity, that she was not wholly to blame, and that Lily had misunderstood everything. She employed her customary strategies, including calculated justifications, half-truths, and excuses. However, Lily was prepared. She stood up without hesitation, her voice piercing the air with clarity and resolve. Mrs. Wilson, she began, her tone cold but unwavering, you can justify yourself to your heart's content, but the truth is undeniable. You have exploited my family, ruined everything I have worked for, and now you stand here, pretending it is all a misunderstanding? The sight of Lily caused Mrs. Wilson to freeze, her eyes narrowing as she gazed at her. For the first time, Lily observed a fissure in her meticulously crafted armor, and her gaze flickered with unease. Mrs. Wilson endeavored to articulate herself, however, she was unsuccessful. Unable to construct her customary web of deception, she was vanquished. Lily's voice was steady but resonant as she continued, you have inflicted harm on not only me but also on numerous others, and you will now be held accountable for your actions. The courtroom was enveloped in deep silence. The air seemed to be dense with tension as everyone anticipated Mrs. Wilson's response. However, when she finally spoke, her voice was shaky, devoid of the strength and arrogance that had once defined her. Her defense had collapsed, and the only thing that remained was the unadulterated truth. The trial continued, but Lily felt as though the most challenging aspect had concluded. She was unable to contain the torrent of emotions that overtook her upon hearing the verdict. Mrs. Wilson was convicted of fraud and property damage. She was required to make up for all of the losses and would be sentenced to prison. Although Mr. Wilson would not be subjected to as grievous a penalty, the repercussions of his actions would still be felt. Lily experienced a sensation of relief that enveloped her. No, it was not pleasure or satisfaction, rather, it was a subtle sensation of lightness, as if a significant burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Justice had been administered, and the truth had prevailed. She had not fought with wrath or hatred, rather, she had fought with determination and resilience. Ultimately, the Wilsons were held accountable for their actions. Lily stood up as the courtroom cleared, momentarily catching her eyes on Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Wilson for the final time. Not as human creatures anymore, they were unable to gaze upon her. Regret and loss consumed them, rendering them shattered. Additional words were unnecessary, all pertinent information had already been communicated. Lily could now proceed without the burden of their falsehoods and deception, as justice had prevailed.